Mark Manell, your host, and this is Stephen. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, Mark.
Glad you're here today. Glad you're joining us too, because we got some exciting things to talk about. Things that most people don't really want to talk about, but once we talk about them, they'll be glad they did.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it. Okay, but before we do that, just to remind people, coming up in the late summer, early fall is the Christian Investment Symposium here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
We're going to have dates and times and all sorts of wonderful things about that. It is free to the public.
Free.
Great speakers, Dan Celia, Art Alley, others will be there that are just leaders in the field of Christian investors.
You know, my favorite part though, if you register early, meaning if you give us an email, contact at mtmministry.com. If you shoot us a call, 314-212-1405. You register early. I think it's the first 100, maybe 100 people. Get a goodie bag. A goodie bag, yes, with all sorts of wonderful things that'll enhance their life. It'll be fun. And the way they register early is just to send us an email. Yeah. And that email goes to contact at mtmministry.com.
Contact at mtmministry.com, send your name and your email address, and we'll register you for the symposium, and we'll give you update alerts as we get closer, and then you get to come and pick up your goodie bag, attend the concerts. There'll be live music there, Christian artists. There'll also be great speakers, so you get to attend those. You get to attend book signings. Oh yeah, so actually a couple of book signings.
Here's the exciting thing. So
Dan Celia will be having his book there.
I'm not talking about Dan Celia.
Okay.
I'm talking about someone who, in my opinion, is a little extra special. You
like short bus special.
Extra special, but you should have your book out by then. Is that right?
That's correct. We're going to be doing a book signing there for my book, and of course those who register will be getting front of the line for that. Yeah. So you'll have your book out by then, and it'll be an exciting conference. Definitely come join us. And today's subject is really exciting, even though I said most people don't like to talk about it. Most people don't like to talk about it because it's so oppressive and so depressing at times, and causes such anxiety and frustration. But this show today is about hope. It's about peace. It's about freedom and contentment. You know. Yeah. And of course, the thing we're talking about is the number one issue in finance. The number one issue that causes the anxiety, frustration, distraction, keeps you from enjoying the fullness of life that God would have for you, and that is
debt.
Oh. Just saying that. I'm sure people turned
just
off
lost
the channel.
Everybody.
You know, I don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody really wants to get into it. But, you know, think about this. Hope, peace, freedom, contentment. These things are possible. You can get beyond debt. No matter where you are in your financial walk, you can find this peace and joy that I'm talking about. Of course, it's from following biblical concepts and moving in the direction God would have you with your finances. But I got to tell you something else. No matter where you're at in your financial walk, there's always a question. The question about the future, question about finances, and of all the questions, of all the different questions people have about investing, insurances, how to buy real estate, or should I rent, cars, all sorts of things. There's one that reflects more pain, more frustration, more anxiety, restlessness, and oppression than any other, and that's how do I get out of debt? Yeah. And because of that, you know, we want to introduce to you More Than Money's Debt Slayer Institute.
Yeah, so More Than Money actually has 4 sub-ministries underneath it, and Debt Slayer is, personally, it's a little close to my heart because I have felt the effects of debt. And it's terrible because they plague you for years.
Yeah, for lifetimes sometimes. Yeah. And that's part of the point. Think about this. What would being debt-free really mean to you as a person? If you have any debt whatsoever, think about, what if you were totally debt-free? What would that look like? What would that feel like? Go there for a minute. Think about, wow, I don't have to send off payments to anybody. I don't have any loans. I don't have any overdraft fees. I don't have, I have more time because I'm spending less time juggling my finances. Maybe I have more money because I'm not sending interest money off to help pay for somebody else's education, some credit card guru or executives' kids to go to some foreign country's master's college. I'd have more money for the day-to-day living to spend with my family and friends. I'd have more time. I'd have more peace. I'd have more joy. That's what being debt-free can bring. It can bring this contentment to your finances that you're not feeling if you have any debt at all.
So is that what Debt Slayer is all about?
It is. Debt Slayer is all about helping people to get out of debt and stay out of debt. And that's really important. And you do that by a lot of get out of debt schemes, and I call them schemes because they really don't work. They're like diets. They're like other things. Sure, you know what? I know people that we've talked about losing weight together, and they lose 30 pounds in 3 months, and they really, and then a month later it's all back on. Because the way they lost that weight didn't make any sense. There was no change in heart, change in life, change in understanding of what was going on. So, and we're going to talk about that a lot. But Debt Slayer is a ministry that we provide for people to get out of debt and stay out of debt in a way that is in alignment with biblical principles and will bring more peace, joy, and I believe contentment throughout the rest of your life.
So that's actually one of the reasons that, mostly Mark developed Debt Slayer. Is he noticed everybody around him, they only had, bits and pieces, I think.
Well, yeah. Back in, I guess it was the 80s, late 80s, I noticed that a lot of the clients that I was consulting, that I was advising, we'd be advising on wealth and insurance and doing all these things, and they'd have debt, and we'd say, okay, we need to get this debt down to do this and this, and then next year they come in, they'd be more in debt, not less in debt, and things would just keep tumbling, and people would say, I can't break free of this, I can't get out of this, and it was causing so much frustration. So what I decided to do is I actually took a whole year off, did a lot of studying, read over 100 books on getting out of debt and the impact of debt, studied the Bible, went through a couple of courses, actually seminars and courses on getting out of debt, and made a lot of notes and realized there was a lot lacking in all these.
Really?
Yeah, a lot lacking in them. And because of that, most people these were like diets. They weren't working. They'd work temporarily and then it would collapse, and oftentimes they'd be in worse shape than they were, especially the ones that dealt with schemes. And I call them schemes because the idea was, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have you default on your loans and blah, 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 and do this and that. And it actually caused more problems than it worked. Oh, is it possible that some people actually got out of debt with some of these? Absolutely. It's also possible that you can win the lottery. Do you think that's a great financial strategy? No. How about one that really works? And so for that year, I just worked with people that wanted to get out of debt. And over that year, we had such great success because it was a process, a system that was grounded in God's Word and grounded in temporal, financial, full money concepts.
So you mentioned schemes a minute ago. So one of the, I would say, schemes that I've heard is that debt is a normal thing. Sometimes you can use debt to your advantage. So why is debt any different than any other financial tool?
It is a financial tool. I would totally agree with that. The key here, though, is there are all sorts of tools. There's screwdrivers and hammers. There's electric drills. There are stud guns that you actually use bullets in them. There's dynamite. That's actually a tool. So there's all sorts of tools. The problem is most people look at debt like they look at any other financial tool. Just something to use, no big deal. I can use it. And in fact, I've heard this over and over. That's no big deal to me. I can deal with it. I'm a big boy. I'm a mature person. I'm an intelligent person. I got my MBA. I'm good. I don't have to worry about it. Don't worry. I know how to use leverage, blah, 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 blah. And they handle it. It's kind of like a kid who says, I got a toolbox here, and in it I got this screwdriver, and I can use this. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to hurt myself, Dad. Okay. And I also have this stick of dynamite.
Okay.
And they handle the stick of dynamite like they do the screwdriver. They don't see any difference. The reality is there's a big difference, and it can blow up on you. It can destroy your financial life. Other things like, if you invest wrong, will it hurt you in the future because you won't have much money? Sure. But it's not going to destroy what you already have unless you get into things like options and things that where you can over leverage or whatever. Or margin and things like that. But we're not going to talk about this today. So there are all sorts of tools, and each one has to be handled differently. Unfortunately, most people handle debt like a simple tool instead of a complex, powerful, highly impactful tool that can harm you as easily as it could help you. In fact, easier than it can help you. So that's one of the big problems that I came across. Another is that people just don't know what they don't know. I mean, if you think about it, most people think that they have all the information or most of the information they need to deal with it because somebody told them they did.
Okay.
I call that lack of information or misinformation. You listen to radio or television, you watch the gurus on these things like you're doing right now, and they'll tell you, they'll give you what I call sound bite financial planning. It's one size fits all, and it's generic. Two things that'll kill you. First of all, if you think about your life, is it really like everybody else's, or is there something unique? God made you unique. If you're married, He made your partner unique. Yeah. If you have kids, He made those unique. Everybody is born unique to God, like snowflakes. Everybody's temperament, everybody's needs, everybody's path, everybody's good works to walk in if they're Christians. They're all unique. So why would one size fits all work for you? The whole thing on one size fits all, it reminds me of this TV commercial I remember from a long time ago. It was this young lady on a bed trying to scoot into a pair of jeans that were obviously too small for her.
Okay.
And, she's trying to fit in it. These pants didn't fit her, and therefore it was going to be uncomfortable, it was definitely inconvenient for her. If that was a one size fits all, I have a saying about one size fits all. One size fits all fits nobody. It's not custom fit for anybody. A good get out of debt plan needs to be built around the uniqueness of your life. It has to be built around your life, not somebody else's or generically. Are there generic ideas? Sure. But those have to be contoured specifically for who you are and what you're all about. And secondly, we got to be careful about the information we have. Do you think it might be possible that a magazine or a blog or a television station might not want to say something contrary that might hurt their number one sponsors?
Yeah.
So if there is additional information, maybe they don't bring it out. And those sponsors, their commercials, do you think they're going to tell you everything? Or are they just going to tell you what would draw you to them and what is absolutely necessary by law to tell you? So they're going to be biased and confusing at best. And then where those advertisements run, there's a good chance that the programs that are run on there will only be in alignment with those because they don't want to lose advertising dollars by having somebody on that's going to contradict them. So the information we get from those might be bad, might be misinformation, might be limited information in the sense that they're going to tell you about what the product could do, may do, and the positive aspects, but minimize all the negative, or if they bring them up at all. And so limited information, or even yet, think about this, limited information from trusted, loving sources.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a story, and I really like this story. It's about a mom and a daughter. They're in the kitchen, and they're preparing dinner together. And mom takes the roast out of the refrigerator and cuts off each end of it, puts it in the pan, and puts it in the oven. And the daughter says, "Mom, why do we cut the ends off the roast? I don't understand that." And the mom stops and just goes, "I really don't know. That's the way my mom did it. Let's call her and find out." So they call grandma, and mom's on the phone with her and just starts laughing and hangs up. And the daughter says, "So what was that about?" She says, "Mom said we cut the ends off the roast because we didn't have a pan big enough for it." Okay, sounds silly, right? Sounds silly, but how much financial information do we apply in our lives because we grew up respecting our parents and they did well financially with what they had, and we believe their wisdom would pass on? Maybe it would, but maybe not. And think about this. Has the economic system changed since they were young and in their prime with their finances? Are there different products and services? Did they make decisions, the best decision they could with the information and the systems that were there? Maybe so. Have those systems changed? Probably. I know the rules have changed. Yeah. The laws have changed. The Glass-Steagall Act went away long time ago. All sorts of banking things change. All sorts of investment products and services are out. Debt has changed. At one time, what credit cards are charging you now for your interest would have been put them in jail under a law of usury. So things have changed dramatically. Bankruptcy laws have changed. So misinformation and lack of information can keep us from getting out of debt. And the final thing that happens is that most get out of debt books, systems, schemes really lack the three legs that are necessary. I mean, think about, we've all heard of the three-legged stool. Imagine if you just had one or two legs on that stool, it wouldn't stand and you hurt your back and your bottom, But if you have all three, you have something solid to work from. Well, most of the systems, if not all of them, lacked a third rail. The uniqueness planning, they didn't have that. Developing your own integrity planning model, your own financial plan. They have parts of all this kind of stuff, which we're going to talk about more deeply later on in the next
next couple of shows.
In the next couple of shows, right. So it's very important to remember that debt, from a biblical perspective, if you read your Bible and you've read it over and over and you did any studies on debt, the Bible never encourages debt. In fact, it discourages it totally. Every aspect of it. In Deuteronomy, it talks about lending as being a blessing, but borrowing as being a curse. So there's a difference between being a lender and being a borrower. We see all these warnings in the Old Testament and the New Testament about debt. Why would God spend so much time warning us about debt if he didn't believe we need to be warned about it?
Yeah.
Does he say absolutely not to do it? Well, there's one verse that has been used and maybe bent a little bit too much, but it says, "Owe no man nothing but..." Okay. No. We'll have to stay tuned for that one. So the whole idea of it is that the Bible warns us to stay out of debt, be out of debt, not to be a borrower, not to become a slave, not to rely on the MasterCard, but rely on the Master Jesus. And Debt Slayer is a program that helps people who maybe head in that direction, maybe have a little bit of debt and like to get out, or maybe so overburdened with debt that they don't know what to do, to help them get out of debt and stay debt free. Yeah. And that's a ministry that's offered through More Than Money Ministries. And we're going to talk more about that later on. Actually, next week we'll talk more about it. We'll get into the three legs. We'll also talk about how to overcome the misinformation, the limited information. We'll talk about how to tame the beast, which a lot of people don't know how to do. And we'll talk about the joy and freedom you too could experience when you realize, even in their situation, no matter what it is financially, if you're in debt or out of debt, that life is
so much more
than money. We'll see you next week.